Welcome to Cup of Joe and Filthy Pleb Esports. I'm Joe and I'm here to talk about professional gaming. This video is going to be a more general discussion of the state of esports, specifically through the lens of the ESL Rainbow Six Invitational and some of the drama that's come up during the invitation, specifically around the invitation of Team G2 to the Six Invitational without them winning any major tournaments or qualifying in the normal way by direct invite from ESL. And so this created a lot of controversy due to the fact that the team is, I think, ranked in the top 4 or 5 in Europe right now in the Pro League. So they're really not what anyone would consider a dominant team. But overall, I would say that this is probably a good thing for both for the Rainbow Siege community as well as for ESL in general. And so that's sort of the thesis of this video essentially, is that this invitation is not a bad thing especially for the state of the esport in particular. So G2 officially, G2 is invited to SI because they've won a lot of tournaments in 2018. They're almost a reigning champions in that matter. So ESL said, well, by de facto, they should be invited. A lot of people cried foul about that and were very angry due to that. The manner in which it sort of circumvented the normal process, and as well cut down on the number of Asian teams that could come to the invitational. So instead of having 4 teams from North America, 4 teams from Asia, 4 teams for Europe, you have 5 teams from Europe and only 3 from Asia. So that isn't, as well as 4 from Latin America. So there's that downside, one could say, to the fairness of the tournament, but still overall I think it was a good thing due to the fact that G2 has one of the biggest brands in esports right now, and that big brand I think is very, very important for the pastime as a whole. Back when I started watching, you had brands were very much more focused on games. So you didn't have a FaZe Clan or a name that would be or an Optic going against TSM in the early days of League of Legends. No, you had league orgs, and then you had maybe a shooter org or a Call of Duty org, something like that. So it's very much more segmented by genre specifically. But more and more what we are seeing is that teams are coming across genres. So G2 will have some Fortnite players. They might have they have a Rainbow Six team, a CSGO team, a League of Legends team. Some orgs even have a FIFA player, something like that. These orgs are spanning multiple different games and building off of the success in one game to build really successful brands. And so I think that brand recognition, I think, is going to be very, very good for the industry going forward, because in traditional sports, people root for the teams that, generally speaking, the teams that are geographically located near their homes. So if you're born in a state like Massachusetts in the U.S., you're going to root for Boston teams. That's just how it works. But in esports, we don't have that geographic connection to the teams we root for. So then generally it falls down to other things like brand or player personality. And here's where I really think why G2 received an invite to this tournament. Because you have a large brand. G2 currently has one of the most recognizable brands in the West. They are one of the more successful brands in the West, and they also really have, of many of the just generally speaking orgs out there, have really mastered it's not viral marketing per se, but let's just call it meme marketing for the sake of clarity, where they're really active on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, creating content, having drama, and creating banter with other teams and organizations out there to really drive engagement with their fans. And so because of that, they bring a lot to the table just from a fan perspective, where maybe they'll pull some fans of their League of Legends team who say, oh, G2 is playing in this Rainbow Six event, let's watch them. They also, when we go back to the second point I made about why people follow teams in esports is players. They have players like Pingu, who's again a name that one of a player who's has a storied career in Siege. He has a lot of name recognition. So those two things I think really make sense. Why G2, why why inviting G2 was a good idea for this tournament. On top of that, all the controversy that this has created has also driven up engagement and knowledge of the tournament's existence. So you're going to have more people tuning in, which means more views, more money, and will grow the Rainbow Six scene. So why is the growing of these scenes important? And it's really important due to the lack of profitability that many organizations are having across esports at this stage. Some of the major things that we've heard of are the Cloud9 CSGO team recently announced that they lost about $1 to $2 million a year maintaining that team. In 2018, 2018, it came out that Fnatic, one of the biggest orgs in Europe at the time, had gone $14 million in debt, as well as with $5.4 million in losses. This is in 2018 when they had a top 20 CSGO team and their League of Legends team went to the World Finals. So it really shows that on-stage success for these teams really doesn't necessarily equate to profitability. And so one of the important things for tournament organizers and for the orgs engaging in this tournament is to make it profitable, because at the end of the day, something that I think we need to think about when we're looking at the tournaments in gaming and professional gaming especially, is that it's a business. These companies need to make money somehow. They have investors, they have players who need to be paid, things like that. And so because of that, they need to make sure that they get their product out to the maximum number of viewers, so that they can get a return on it. Building off of the idea of profitability, I think that it's interesting to see what happens when you have orgs and scenes that really suffer from a distinct lack of profitability. This was seen in the League of Legends scene several years ago, when the owner of TSM, as well as the owners of TSM, and as well, I think the general manager of Immortals, went on Reddit and on the internet to argue with the CEO of Riot Games, Mark Merrill, over the profitability of League of Legends and how they were losing money in the game, in the tournaments, as opposed to making money. And it was a big argument on Reddit and Twitter, where both sides were publishing statistics, things like that. They eventually came to the table and came up with this idea of franchising, and that's really, it seems to be one of the ways that esports have become more and more profitable over the years, is where they force teams to actually pay money up front so that they can then get a cut later down the line. This is seen in both now the LEC and the LCS in League of Legends. They're both franchise leagues. Overwatch League did that as well. The buy-ins differ, but they're still generally in the several millions of dollars. This I think brings up one of the more interesting new franchise leagues that's come out recently, which is Flashpoint. It's a new franchise CSGO league that, unlike the franchised Overwatch League and unlike the franchise League of Legends League, is run by the teams themselves. So you can see that in some of the rules and regulations for it, like the cost of entry fee is one of the lower ones. I think Thorin said it was around $2 million. And so that lower barrier to entry, definitely you can see would almost be inspired by it being created by the teams, because they don't want to necessarily exclude people, but at the same time they definitely want to have that upfront, hey, you need to have some skin in the game so that you want us to succeed. And so that the franchised structure there is very important to that. I think that one of the interesting things that's happening in generally when you're speaking about profitability of esports leagues is the Astralis group. They recently, several months ago, they did their first stock offering on the New York Stock Exchange. Currently they're sitting at about $8 a share, but the fact that they are still at $8 a share I find very interesting. I mean, the Astralis group has the #1 CSGO team for God knows how long, the better part of 2 years on and off, as well as Origin Gaming, which is a professional League of Legends team that currently is doing very well. There's a very storied org, and so they're trying to find profitability another way outside of that franchise structure with a more I guess traditional model. I'm curious to see where that goes, but generally all this goes to say that I think it was the right choice to invite G2 to the R6 Invitational due to the fact that it will really hopefully drive new fans to view the esport, create this cross genre brand for teams, so that now people can be G2 fans in their CS:GO, in League of Legends, in Rainbow Six, and I think that's going to be very good for the pastime of esports viewing as a whole, because it helps people be more emotionally involved with the teams they support. So that's all. Those are my thoughts on this area for the day. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Joe from Filthy Pleb Esports. Hope you have a great rest of your day.